at the bicycle company. They're like the biggest distributor of bicycle parts, QBP. I did some patent development at a startup. And then I worked at Wells Fargo about 2.5 years on the credit card team, we managed all the credit card services and for all the credit cards that we were responsible for, and it was just a plethora of black law that just worked always. And now I'm currently starting my own startup recently. Thank you. It's a content creation platform for the Muslim community and actually cover Abrahamic religions, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So that's a little bit about my journey. We're going to get a little bit more details about that. So, like I mentioned, so who am I? My name is Hassan Shahid. I'm African American, born and raised in Twin Cities. My family is actually from Chicago, so all my uncles and aunties live out here still. But my mom, she moved to Minnesota at 17 and had me and my sister. So grew up in a single parent household, raised in the Twin Cities. Like I mentioned, I'm also a musician. Currently doing some contract work at Meta for a company called ACL Tech. And like I mentioned, I am a now founder of the company. So here's some pictures. I think it's always important, people love visualization. Founder, that picture of me right there, me back when I was in college. I actually did a what do you call it, when you go overseas to study abroad. I did study abroad in Morocco, and I right here, I'm actually involved with the pizza, member of Capital Psi Fraternity Incorporated. That's my mom's right there, my sister. Yvonne Depin, that's my musician friend. It's actually a famous gospel singer, if y'all know him. And I'm also a street performer. It's called busking when you play in the street. So like there was definitely a time where I was just like real life, just street performing for dollars. It was a great vibe. I would say I'm kind of a hippie. I ain't gonna even lie. So, those pictures of kids. I was a youth worker for a long time, so it was actually all my cousins and whatnot. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, I'm from South Minneapolis, born and raised. Went to Roosevelt High School. I'm studying Afro Studies and Social Work over at the University of Minnesota. And I mean, honestly, I remember when I got accepted to school, I think I got in Scotty College on the appeal. So like I actually applied, got declined, and then I applied again and got into school. So I really feel like life was just blessing me. I think it's really about resilience and like following through on the things that you want to do. But I got to college because everybody told me to go to college. It's like, that's what you need to do to be successful. You need to go to college. But I got there, I didn't know what I was doing. I was undecided for a long time. Yeah, but I always had a passion for youth. I was coaching tennis back in the day, working with kids inside the community over in North Minneapolis. It was one of my first jobs outside of high school, and I was always working with kids. So at a young age, I was definitely a youth worker. That picture right there, George Floyd, is squared out in South Minneapolis. And, figure, everything going on. It's definitely a staple now within the Twin Cities and whatnot. But yeah, after college, I did all different types of jobs as a youth worker at 21. So I worked, like I mentioned, as a tennis coach. I worked at multiple public schools as a TA. I worked at pre-K as well. Worked at a youth shelter. I even worked at US Bank as a teller. So, when you're young, you're 20s, you get money where you got to get it. You know what I'm saying? I think I was really after college when I decided not to finish my education. I was just in the hustle mentality. I knew I wanted to pursue more education, but when you're in the grind mode, you got to get money where you can. So, so just like I mentioned, I was working in youth for about 7 years. And I don't know, I feel like music for me was a great outlet. I think being a creative was a great way for me to connect with myself emotionally. I really believe in like just vulnerability in general. And I think it's important. So writing for me, playing in the streets was a way for me to connect with the community. As well as I did do some community advocacy work, working on various different political campaigns and volunteering and whatnot. And I was always engaged in the community as well. But I think I was about 27, and I was a youth program manager at the YMCA, running all the youth programs over St. Paul, Minneapolis, St. Paul itself, and I was just like, I gotta do something different. I'm sitting here making $19 an hour, and I'm in management. Like, I love the opportunities. I need something different. So I think for me, I took a risk on myself. I remember I quit my job, and I was just like, I got to do something different. I didn't know what that was. I didn't finish my education. I got a job at the University of Minnesota. I was going to see if I could finish up school there. Somebody was talking about some CDL program, and I was like, let me go see what that CDL program. Maybe I want to be a truck driver, you know? And then I went there, and before the CDL program started, somebody was talking about network engineering and working in IT. They was throwing numbers like 130,000, 120,000. I was like, I don't know if I want to be a truck driver no more. And I think I've always had the interest of being in tech, but I always had this barrier of like, do I have the math requirements, or do I know how to work this technology? I think we're all consumers of technology, but we never, at least at the time, I didn't think I was competent. Or someone went to school for a computer science degree, I was intimidated by that itself. But the opportunity was like, said, give us 7 months, we'll train you. It's on-site training. They said something about free. I was like, yeah, you know, this is awesome. So I fully immersed myself inside of the network engineering program. And honestly, I was hungry. You know, I was making $19 an hour. I had a car that was like not starting all the time, and I had to like pop the hood. And I was like, dude, I can do this. I can lock in for 7 months. Like, why not? And it was just an immersive program of Transcend IT was the program I did. And it was just this really ambitious guy who wanted to train network engineers, and he was guaranteeing us to get work and help us get trained up and get us jobs, something like that. I learned everything about data centers, routers and switches, routing protocols, BGP, TCP, encryption. I learned about Nexus Catalyst devices. I learned about firewalls and rules and routes. And it was just a very immersive, actually cabling devices, Ethernet. And it was amazing. So I wanted to, first thing I learned about tech was the OSI model. So to explain it, where I started at was really like in the physical, the data link and networking. So that's really like working inside the data centers, learning how to cable devices, work inside the data centers, learning how to create different ports and different encryptions on those actual ports itself. And it was this telnet into devices, SSH into devices. It was very a rigorous program. It was like learning how to ping the network and how to connect to the network and how to build the infrastructure of a network. And network engineering, network itself is how you build the infrastructure of a lot of these corporations and companies and what they do. So honestly, it was the best place for me to start my career was network engineering. I feel like your jobs are probably still secure with network engineers, with hardware. Like we're gonna need tons of data centers in the future. So usually with that, you usually get like a CCNA, is where people start, or they start with the network fundamentals. CompTIA. They usually have like certification that you can begin education. So I pretty much, within 7 months, I got CCNA certified. Qualified, because I never got that CCNA certification. So I just wanted to show you that. Now I end up transitioning to software development, which is more the application level, more of layer 5, 6, and 7. And that's what I actually transitioned to eventually. We're working more HTTP, APIs, applications itself. But I believe that BGP, firewalls, routers, switches, very important inside the data center space and whatnot. So when did it click for me that I transitioned from network to engineering to software development? I remember I was on a project at Sleep Number, it was a contract, and I was overwhelmed. I was scared. Like it was one of my, not my first position per se, but they were expecting me to do a lot of work. We were doing a lot of research. And we were working with technology called ACI, and we were doing implementation changes and configuration changes inside this GUI. The GUI is usually like a software version of like a tool that you can use to navigate and make configuration changes. And it was taking a long time. I think the implementation process, what we were going to do, it was going to take like, I think the actual implementation was going to take 2.5 hours. And it was like clicking through GUI for 2.5 hours. It's crazy. And then so we did some research and we were able to like connect to like the actual terminal. And what we were able to do was actually run a script for all the changes that we needed. And we were able to run that script and literally like, it went in like 20 seconds, I think. So 2 hours to like 2 seconds or 20 seconds, like, oh crap, this is awesome. That's what I learned about coding. And we ran it all through actually Postman, which is like a great tool where you can monitor and actually do any type of card request. So get requests, post requests, delete, puts, and edits as well. So it's a great, if you never use Postman, I actually love Postman because it really introduced me to the software development space. If you're into testing as well, it's a great tool to be able to have. And so that was a moment, I was like, man, I just ran my first Python script, and we like, this process of scripting went down to like in seconds. And so from there, I ended up getting furloughed because of COVID for my contract with like Sleep Number because everything was happening. So I was on that contract for about 7 months. It was one of my second contracts in network engineering. I was still very early in my career, and I was like, yeesh, like Trump just said that we're going to be furloughed. I don't know when I'm going to find employment. I was interviewing, I wasn't getting jobs, and I was like, I got to pivot. And I was like really interested about coding. I was hearing tons of stuff about coding. I was always intimidated about it because I didn't think I was competent enough or I was able to do it. But the opportunity came about for me. I found a program from Prime Digital Academy in Minnesota, probably the biggest boot camp program inside of Minnesota. And they were literally just like my network engineering program. They were like, 6 months, we're going to train you to be full stack developers. And like, that's what happened. It was like, it was insane. I was taking unemployment when I was doing it, but I fully immersed myself into the program and learned the fundamentals of coding. So it was everything from, we learned the current stack. So it's PostgreSQL, Express.js, Node.js, and React. And that's like the basis of like full stack applications. So it's like web-based applications, what we were learning a lot of our fundamentals on. And it's building simple things like web applications that could like, it could be a clock or a calculator. And it was a very that's why I learned all my coding. So they taught you how to do loops and functions and components. And this is what you're seeing in actual code. So I'm not for sure who's inside the room. So I'm just, but yeah, this is like code. It's a lot prettier than like being inside the terminal and telnet and SSH inside devices. So I feel like coding it really just like woke up like an animal inside of me. It's like, oh my God, I'm about to learn how to code. So it was fun, honestly. Learning how to code, I feel like it was so much information inside a short period of time. But by the end of it, I was like, wow, like I really caught the wave. And I graduated from the program in 2021 of October. And I was able to land my first role as a software automation engineer at QVP. After graduating from that program, I was struggling finding that first job. I was interviewing left and right. I had some personal hurdles that I'm not going to talk about today, but I had obstacles to get my first job in software development. But I knew I had the skills because of network engineering. So it was just like, it was a pivotal role for me to make that transition. I actually leveraged my network. Being a member of Kappa Psi, I was able to meet one of my fraternity brothers, who wanted to walk on the lake. And he was like, I know somebody who has an opportunity. I followed up with him, and he had an opening QA role. So I was trained as a full stack developer, but the only role I had was in testing. I think in my bootcamp program, I learned about testing probably like a day and a half. It was like 3 hours. And coming to find out, that was my career. So I ended up becoming a software automation engineer. I was responsible for all the testing for all the developers. There's a different tech stack that I wasn't working with. So they're working with Java and Spring Boot heavily. And coming from a more web development environment, it was more of an object-oriented environment, working with like microservices and whatnot. And I was creating automation test scripts and whatnot. And I was there for about almost a little under 2 years, I would say. And in the process, I actually, through networking, and that's one thing I want to talk about as well, is I wanted to be a developer. And I felt like being a tester was like, I want to get right into the development. You know, I got these skills and whatnot, but you take the opportunities that are given to you. And through that, I went to a lot of network events within the Twin Cities. They have like startup events, and startup culture is a great place to find early opportunities. Like instead of going to big corporations, startups are willing to take a risk on you because your skills are very valuable. So I think I found value in networking and meeting founders, meeting early products, meeting an engineer. And I actually met somebody before my boot camp who ended up being my boss at StoryForge. And he was like, I'm looking for some developers and have this app idea. And I didn't know that I was gonna be my boss a year and a half later after I graduated from my program. He literally gave me a job, like making the most money I made at that time over like him paying for my fish sandwich at like a restaurant. It was like, deal, shook a hand. I was on that contract for a while, and that's how I actually got my actual development experience. Actually, there was another startup that I met. She gave me some experience, but she was only paying equity, so she wasn't giving me extra money. So I took the experience to get the exposure as well. And so I'm just saying that to say sometimes your first experience isn't going to be how you think it's going to be. You think it's going to be a 9 to 5 or an internship. Sometimes you got to really get out and speak to people and go to where the places where innovation is happening to get that early experience. And sometimes you have to create your experience, and I'll talk a little about that as well. But I got all my first jobs. It wasn't through putting job applications in. It was through advocating for myself, and it was through word of mouth. And somebody give me an opportunity and not waiting for somebody to call me back for an interview. So something to think about. My big one was actually, I got laid off from QBP. They laid me off. It was a crazy year when it happened, actually. I became a single parent because the mother of my child passed away. So I ended up having my son full time. And then I got laid off like a month later. And then I already had my ticket to Afrotech because I always wanted to go. And I was like seeing all these vlogs and everything. I'm like, yo, I gotta go to Afrotech because diversity is just popping up there. And I just wanted to catch the wave. I had my ticket already booked in like June. Everything happened that happened in like August, September. I was at the conference in October. I had an interview right before I went because I put my resume in here inside the portal in advance. They scheduled an interview with me. I went out to the conference in Houston. I got there on the Tuesday, had an interview on Wednesday, had an offer on Friday for a software developer role with the credit card team. They wanted me to move to North Carolina, but because of everything I had going on, I was like, I can't relocate. Like my son needs me, blah, blah, blah. I need to stay in Minnesota. And sure enough, they were able to let me stay in Minnesota. So I got my first six-figure job, Wells Fargo. I was geeked, I was excited, and it was a great accomplishment to be able to go knowing that I invested in myself to go to a conference, and from that emerged my first six-figure role. So just that mentality, sometimes you have to remove yourself from your own environment to go seek the opportunities that you want. Let's talk a little bit more about what it means to be a full stack developer. So full stack developer just means like you're a master of none, jack of all trades or whatnot, you know? So, you know, the front end of development is all the pretty stuff. It's the HTML, it's the CSS, it's the JavaScript, it's the React. React is a framework that's built on top of JavaScript. React was built, I think, by Facebook years ago, and it's like pretty much still the standard of a lot of web development, web applications that we use today. Think like MySpace. You know, remember back then we used to be up on there, making on MySpace, you know, editing our pages, making them all pretty. That's what like a lot of front-end development. And honestly, front-end development is still needed heavily. Back-end engineering is a little bit more server-based, more data-based. You start to get into more object-oriented languages, Java, Spring Boot, .NET, C#, Python. They're a little bit more complex in terms of functionality and what they're able to do. So being able to work with a back-end with the front-end is what makes you a full-stack developer. Then you have the database as well. Yeah, SQL, PostgreSQL, MongoDB. Once you start to learn the fundamentals of coding itself, it gets complex, but there's so many different languages, different tech stacks that you can get. So the biggest thing is to learn one full stack tech stack. Learn a tech stack within the front end and the back end. Make that work. See how a database from there. Figure out how you can set up the CI/CD pipeline. CI/CD pipeline is when you use Git, so you can push up your code to the repository. And I can probably show you that as well. I don't know, I didn't set up any links and whatnot. So if we're gonna have some time for questions, if you have questions later. So basically what the full stack developer is just a plethora of what it takes to build out a full application. So from the front end to the back end and everything else. So then you have cloud architecture as well. If you're gonna use AWS, Azure, GCP. So it's not this bootcamp program. They threw all these languages at us. You know, all this information. It's like all these languages all connected together to build this product or these applications. But it's way more tangible than what you think. You know what I'm saying? I think for me, not having any experience, you just apply knowledge is the best knowledge. So there's one thing to learn the theory or something, but if you're not tangibly trying to build out an application, all that stuff is free, you know, to actually learn some of these tools and whatnot. It's a different language, but it's like becoming literate with inside the technology. it's just learning how to read, and once you start learning some of the fundamentals of it, I mean, the way technologies work, a lot of stuff is automated and doing itself. You don't need to understand the math, you just need to understand the concepts behind it, and it becomes a lot easier. And that's what kind of happened to me. Like after I just hit my knee. Look, we're on time. Okay. Slider, I don't even know. So, I became a polyglot. So that means it's like, I just started embracing languages. I'm like, those Java at me, those C# at me. Let me see. I was like, Rust, let me go see if I can build an application with Rust. And I think that's just how you have to do it. Like once you learn the fundamentals of coding, it's easy to learn other languages and try to get that exposure to it. Different companies use different things. Like I got into banking, and like all the enterprise languages are using Java Spring Boot for their microservices and whatnot, and .NET C#. Whereas other companies are using Python heavy because they have huge databases. So it's really just about figuring out what you want to build and what you're interested in, and just starting somewhere and just doing it. And for me, I just soaked up as much as I could. Like after I learned the parent stack with JavaScript, Spring Boot, I was like, I want to learn Java. Coming to find out, I got a testing job doing Java Spring Boot. And then next you know, when I got to Wells Fargo, I was doing .NET C#. And now that I have these skills, like I'm now so marketable and hireable. So sometimes it may just be just building a web application or a product, and just trying some stuff out and seeing what happens. So for that transition from network engineering and software development, I think network engineering, what it really taught me was just how to study technology, get that early exposure. And software development really taught me some fundamental skills in terms of coding in multiple languages, debugging, working with Git, learning system and API designs. I did learn a lot of network engineering, learning about configurations of routers and switches and firewalls. And I think network engineering made it easy for me to make that transition. So you have to really struggle somewhere. Like, I'm not saying this stuff is easy to learn, but I'm saying with time and dedication, anything is possible. It's not math. It is science, but it's not impossible. It's like learning how to ride a bike. Once you learn it, it's easy to navigate, but you do have to put the time and effort. And like, I put the time and effort. I was literally taking a bus every day for 7 months, like going to class right after work from 5 to like 10 p.m. and then taking a bus and being home by like 11:30 and do that over again, for 7 months. So it was dedication, but it was worth it. And I think, a lot of the skills now are just those boot camps taught me so much information. And it's interesting because now like the industry is changing so much. So I guess like to kind of show you what some of the code looks like, this is a actual function itself, and it's an async function, and it has some variables in it. But it's kind of how the code looks, So I just wanted to show that as well. Let's see. Yeah, and to the point where now I'm doing I got a contract, I'm a contingent worker is what they call it. So I actually work for Meta as a contractor, and I'm doing test heavy work now. So we can't tell us what we're doing over here, but it's working at a real tech company now. Like AI is like they're doing some stuff over there, man. Like it's phenomenal in terms of all the exposure and stuff there. So a lot of my fundamentals in terms of even in our first role and not wanting to do testing, but testing literally set the precedence of my career because you always need to validate your work. You always need to be able to test it, validate it, provide, see what the endpoint is producing. So sometimes you don't know the path that you're on and how valuable it's going to be in the future. And what you think is what you not want to be doing could literally be the best skills that you have that can set the precedence of your career. And now I'm in a test lead over at Meta. And now that I've been bouncing around in tech. I've been network engineering and software development, and then I started hearing all this stuff about AI, right? And I was like, oh, AI, it sounds amazing. What is AI? I think it was like 2 years ago. It was like ChatGPT. 3 years ChatGPT came out, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. And it was literally right after I finished like a boot camp or two. I was like a year to my experience, and I was like, wow, like, what is it? So I literally I convinced my mentor to pay for a program. And I did like an immersive bootcamp program. It was like a 4-week program, but they taught me so much information about machine learning and how to take data and train data and vectorize data and running through machine learning models, and it was overwhelming, to be frank with you, because like as software development, it was, it's like building a web application. But now you're taking the data and vectorizing it and running through a model, and through that you can fine tune the model, and then they learn about the RAG model. So it was a very immersive program, and I learned so much about the AI space. And I was just curious. I didn't think, I was more interested in AI, and I learned so much about machine learning. And I'm just sharing this because that was my first introduction to the AI machine learning space. And I was able to keep up because now that I had that software development experience and whatnot. And so I'm saying that to say it's like, sometimes you just gotta take a moment, just like if you're interested, if you're curious, just jump into it, because it's like, you don't have to be an immediate expert, but sometimes it's about being able to talk through the information and now know what vectorizing a database is, and how to train data and how to fine tune a model. And I didn't know nothing about that, like, before I got into the program. I graduated from that program, and I didn't really know what I was gonna do with that knowledge, but we're now inside the agentic era. Like, I don't know if you've heard about MCP models and some of the stuff that's happening with Codex and Gemini, and I love Claude Code. I'm the biggest Claude Code fan guy, 110%. But we're entering a new space in software development. I told all my software development friends, like, the stuff that we learned in 2021 is still beneficial, but if you're not learning how to use MCP and learning how to use these new models, you're gonna be behind in the industry. So I recommend for anybody who is curious, like, go learn some coding fundamentals, but really immerse yourself into this AI space. I think the AI space is really changing the skills. Like, you have these MCP models and learn how to use the skills, and you can run a swarm of agents to run tasks. Like, tasks that would take me like weeks to do, now it's taking me 10 minutes to do. And it's just like, it's really expedite the process of software development, and it's changing the way that we are conducting, the businesses are transforming. So it's a very new space. Like, I've been following the vlogs and the videos and like the newsletters for like the last 6, 7, 8 months. So much innovation has happened, and there's so much opportunity if you to learn these tools and whatnot. They call it orchestration, in terms of, you're basically, instead of being a software developer or AI engineer, you're basically orchestrating AI to like do all these tasks for you. It's crazy some of the stuff you can do. Maybe I might have some time. And I just want to talk about my business, actually. I'm going to unplug myself. Now that I'm entering new space, I actually leverage a lot of AI to build my early stage product. I have an MVP, I would say, of a content creation platform. If you are interested, you can scan the QR code to be an early tester of the application itself. But basically, I built a content creation platform for the Muslim, the Christian, and the Jewish faith. The idea was really, I was trying to build the perfect profile for people. I feel like the social media is kind of oversaturated, and I was like, if we can consolidate some of their content in one place, so if you're looking for a specific profile, you can be able to find it. And maybe I might go over that a little bit more. What this path costs. Oh yeah, so I think the most important thing that I just want to say is just imposter syndrome is real. I think for me, for so long, I feel incompetent to be able to learn this stuff. But the biggest thing is like, you just gotta, it's applied knowledge. It's one thing to read things in a book, but if you can't actually apply the knowledge that you're not doing, if you can't test it, if you can't find a module to do it, you need to find a community of people who you can talk to. One biggest thing I realized inside of my bootcamp program was like finding a few friends who I could just talk about some of the code that I was working on. If you can't talk about it, because when you get a job, that's all it is articulating your technical processes as a team and being able to find or troubleshoot a result. So it's like, one thing is to learn it, another thing to talk through it, and the only way you're gonna talk through it is about socializing with other professionals and other learners and whatnot. So as you're learning this stuff inside the tech space, find somebody who you can talk about your projects with. Like, I still have one of my friends, he called me today, right, on the phone. We was in a boot camp together, and we still call each other and just like chop it up and talk about some of the things that we're working on, and we'll hop on a call and do pair programming. Part of software development culture is all about sharing your computer and actually collaborating. And I think especially in a very virtual age that we're in, we can tend to isolate ourselves. And I think when you're learning this information, you gotta find community. Yeah, so I made some of these slides with AI, so I'm like reading, I'm like, what is this going on? I was more focused on being here than actually slides. So, but I think what paid off, I think, was just the biggest thing is this community experience. I actually don't know what's happening to this slide. But what I like to tell you is be curious and just have the willingness to learn. Like, I didn't know, I was about to become a truck driver on the road. Like, I was about to be a guy with a big belly, getting the chicken sandwiches, like in the middle of Indiana somewhere. But I took a risk and I gambled on myself and I immersed myself inside the tech space. Network, you have to find your community. I was struggling in Minnesota to find opportunities. I had to go to Texas. I got to go to Houston. I had to go to my people and go find opportunity. So you have to sometimes be innovative because there's a lot of gatekeeping inside this space. I've been in lots of interviews and they see me. I can see it in their face. I'm like, dang, I'm not getting this job. So sometimes you just have to like know where you're welcome at. And just because you decline, you have to get multiple declines before you get into the space. You have to learn talk about the things that you're doing. You know, it's one thing to be able to build an application, push up code, but can you articulate what the process is, what libraries you're bringing in, and be able to talk about it like you're excited and passionate about it. And I think that really makes a difference because these companies, as you're getting your first experience, they're taking a gamble on you, they're risking it. They have to give you an opportunity to fail so you can learn. That's the whole thing about this process. That's why we do testing. We're expecting for things to break. We're expecting to find bugs. That's what your job is professionally, is to troubleshoot. And you just gotta be able to articulate when something is working or something is working. And you only do that through, like, if you can't hit your friend up and talk about the code you pushed up or the function you built or library you built in, you're not really that passionate about it. So you have to find some type of passion about it. Never stop learning is another thing. Like, I've been in this space now about 7-8 years. It's crazy to say that, but I'm always like learning something. Like, I've literally Claude Code is like my new little thing. And now it's crazy because I'm using it heavily within my work process and flows. And I literally read a news article about it like in November. And I was like, let me see what this is. And it literally, I'm like in a deep rabbit hole with Claude Code because what they're doing with the skills in the agentic space is phenomenal. But it's because I have the interest to keep learning and now I'm leveraging some of that environment. And you have to build products. You have to. You got to build shit, push code. If you're in the cybersecurity file, you got to do labs. If it's cloud architecture, you got to get the membership to the clouds and set up the local environments. And you know, sometimes you got to invest a little bit of money to build these products. But a lot of these products are free. You know, a lot of these tools are free. There's always free something to get started. Yeah. So the entry-level pathway. There's a lot. So I kind of mentioned 3 different careers because I'm kind of navigating inside all of them. You could go to networking route. You can start with your CCNA fundamentals, CompTIA Plus is a great certification against Networking Plus. You can always do a Security Plus certification. You get one of those certifications, those really make you marketable to get your first level to entry level job. If you do a boot camp program, and you can get those certifications, at least for CompTIA certification of Security Plus, you can get it within 3 to 4 months if you're locked in. You know, some people take 6, 8 months, but if you're focused, you can really do it. For software development, there's so many opportunities like Code Academy, Khan Academy. Now we got ChatGPT. Honestly, you just type in ChatGPT, be like, hey, I want to get software development. Can you build a curriculum for me to do it? And it'll tell you everything that you need to do. Now it's just about finding the videos and putting together everything and finding some way to get IDE, build stuff out. If you're trying to get into the AI space, I mean, you know, you got to install some coding tools and whatnot, but it's worth it to be able to use an MCP tool or whatnot. But I kind of want to open up for questions because I kind of could just ramble on, so let's go there.
Okay, I love that you come from the testing space. I'm a former Wells Fargo person as well.
Yeah.
Do they still use the Major Nelson, General Nelson testing platform?
I can't say. No, I mean, not that I'm aware of. I mean, for my team, I'm not aware of those.
I was in internet banking. That was
All right.
Thank you. That was my question.
Yeah.
Can we go back to the last slide? So I was taking notes. And
Yeah.
one where you kind of skipped over like what worked and what didn't work. You kind of fast forward. I was kind of wanting to see.
My apologies.
Well, that's okay. While other folks are talking and asking Q&A, I can see right now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
And
any
then
more
the one
questions?
that- and then the one right
I'm
before
sorry,
the
let
very
me cut
last
you off.
slide.
What did you say?
So after this one, and then the one before the very last slide, I can see.
This one right here?
No, the one, let's start with the one that worked and didn't work, and then I have got one more slide after that.
I got
know
you.
Other folks have questions.
Yeah, for
so I
sure.
can be writing down.
We had another question?
So with vibe coding.
Yes.
Are you familiar with vibe coding?
Vibe coding is like agentic engineering. So vibe coding is basically leveraging MCP tools. And honestly, how about, I'll do y'all one better. Like, let's see if I can just, how am I on time right now? I'm gonna start my guy. Give me 1 second. I just wanna see if I can pull this over, because I love to just show you a little something, you know? But, give me the- Okay. So vibe coding is basically using like an MCP server tool, so using like Codex or like Claude Code. So once you set up your internal tools in your environment, it's easy to install it. But inside your terminal, this is my terminal. I don't even use ID anymore. I'll type in Claude and it will start up. And so this is Claude Code. So this is a server and whatnot. You can basically say anything you want to it. And this can like literally, this is the future of coding. So everything we were doing before, in the past, geez, let me see if I can pull up ID. Give me a second. Yes, code. So in the past, in order to write code, you usually want to like have an IDE. An IDE is basically a tool where you can edit your code, like Python or anything inside of it. And so it will look something like this bad boy right here. And I mean, we're still using this as well. But you have your code, pretty much sits in here somewhere and whatnot. Now you're just writing in your code. So I could be like, hey, build the React application and let it clock. Okay, I spelled that wrong, it's all good. And I use natural language, but what's going to happen is now Claude Code is going to process my prompt. This is what it is prompting. And they also call it prompt engineer or vibe coding, right? Because vibe coding, you don't need to now be technical. You don't have to, before there's a bit of React application, you have to type in a command like npm React, like, I forget what the commands now, but you pretty much npm start or run and it'll build out a web application. But you can see it's pushing out code now. And I mean, it might take a little bit, but this is vibe coding basically. You basically install these libraries inside your terminal, your local environment, and then you install various skills. So you can see all these skills right here. You got find skills, specs, UX, UI, pro. So as an engineer, like in the past, you would need, to maybe if you want to do UX, UI design work. Now I have an agent that I can call, so I can call this skill right here, and then I can have it redesign my whole application. And so what you do is it gives you all these skills that you can use, and you install these skills. And it's maybe I might, if y'all follow me on LinkedIn, maybe I'll post a video of like how you can install like your local environment or whatnot. So at the time, but vibe coding is the future, y'all. It's agentic engineering. It's the precedence of like where technology is going. A lot of these tools and competitors like Gemini, Codex, and Claude Code are trying to make the perfect models or whatnot, but it's really getting like extraordinary what's possible. But we're gonna let this keep generating because I'm going to see what's gonna actually build out. I'm gonna tell it to. When you're done with the application, run it on the server so that we can run the application. I use a lot of whisper flow now too. I just talk to go. But we'll see what that the application generates in a bit. But this is basically what vibe coding does. It's like work inside a terminal. They also have Cursor as well. So they have modern day agentic IDE tools like Cursor. that you can use that you use multiple models, whether it be Claude Code or OpenAI models, that you can use to basically do more by coding. Any other questions?
So now that you've got the successful career without a college degree, do you have any plans to finish?
Do I have any plans to finish? To be frank with you, I don't. I think the biggest thing is just about keep educating myself. I think it's getting more certifications. It's about getting hands-on experience. One thing I learned about being in the industry is like, there's one thing to get a degree, because I meet people with master's degrees who can't find jobs. Computer science degrees, and they're trying to figure it out. So I think it's the sauce of being able to know the knowledge, being confident about the knowledge, gaining the experience, and finding people who can believe in you, who's going to give you the opportunities that you need. So I think my experience that I have now is way more valuable than a degree.
So your education's not done, it's just your knowledge.
My education is never done. So I just think the traditional route of pursuing education, and I think it's still valued to get a degree because, I think what I did was probably like the 3%, the 2%. I don't know what happened in terms of leveraging my network to be able to get my foot inside the door. But a lot of these big corporations are getting rid of the college requirements because they're looking for people who actually have the skills. Most people, they go get these degrees and they're not building applications. They're not actually doing the work to be able to build the products, to get their foot inside the door in some places. So, I think if the time was right, of course I would go finish my education, but I'm a single parent, and I think the biggest thing is always about the dollar. And I'm always seeking my next opportunity, and I'm always learning, wanting to go. Somebody gives an offer I can't refuse and pay for my education, of course I would go back.
So
So,
Microsoft is founded by a college dropout.
well, maybe you can put me on. I would love to get my degree officially, but it's all about timing, I think. So, any other questions? Go ahead.
Maybe perhaps later, I know we have to move on, but would I be able to take a look at your slides, maybe,
I could definitely email you slides. Let's definitely connect on
that would be
LinkedIn.
great, 'cause I'm still.
Yeah, my apologies.
Just trying to-
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, add me on
I know we
LinkedIn.
gotta move on.
Oh, yeah.
It was
So,
a great presentation. Thank
The most important thing as well, please follow me. On like that link, it's QR code is to my link tree basically. My LinkedIn, you can follow me there, add me on Instagram. You can actually sign up to be an early tester for my product itself. The biggest thing I want to tell you is that even though there's so much going on, there's so much unpredictability with this AI stuff, and there's going to be a huge shift happening. I still think there's still a huge literacy gap, especially for us in this room. There's a huge literacy gap with us inside technology. And I think the biggest thing is that we have to create our own opportunities. One thing to educate yourself, one thing you have to advocate for yourself, and then you have to go find community. That's what I have to do because nobody was handing me opportunities. I have to really leverage my network and really get in community and talk about my skills with confidence. And somebody gave me a chance, which really is at the rest of my career. So it's a pleasure to be out here with you all. Tech changed my life, and I was not, if you asked me at 25, I had no idea that I would be a software developer, AI engineer, basically, inside the agentic space. But I think the biggest thing is you never know where being passionate about something is going to take you. And there's 100 ways to get to where you need to get to. So you have to figure out what works for you, and don't let your fears keep you from doing it. So it's a pleasure to be here with you all. I was excited coming down here. My friend drove down with me. Thank you. So. Okay.